Nobody understood why they took him. Out of all the humans they could have chosen, the aliens picked a quiet boy who always sat in the corner of the classroom, reading old science books and writing small notes about stars. His name was Ethan. He was not strong, not brave, not popular. He was the kind of boy everyone ignored. But that night, when the sky above Earth opened like a wound of light, it was Ethan who disappeared into the unknown. One moment, he was in his small room surrounded by books and silence. The next, a beam of blue light swallowed him whole. He didn't even have time to scream. When he opened his eyes, everything was different. The air was cold, heavy, and full of strange smells. The walls around him were made of metal that seemed to move as if it was alive. His head hurt, and when he tried to stand up, the ground beneath him pulsed like a heartbeat. He was not on Earth anymore. He heard voices, low hissing sounds that made his skin crawl. He turned and saw them. Tall creatures with long, scaled bodies and golden eyes that glowed in the dark. They were half human, half snake, wearing black armor that shimmered like oil. Their movements were smooth and dangerous. They were watching him, whispering in their strange language. One of them raised a metallic staff and pointed at him. "Weak," it hissed. "Human weak. No power." The others laughed, a cold, echoing sound that made Ethan step back in fear. Before he could understand what was happening, two of the creatures grabbed him and dragged him down a narrow passage lit by green light. He tried to fight, but their grip was like steel. They stopped in front of a heavy circular door. The biggest alien hissed something that sounded like a command. The door opened with a loud metallic sound, revealing a dark pit below. Ethan felt hot air rising from it, mixed with the faint smell of something alive. He looked down and his heart almost stopped. The floor of the pit was moving, not with water, but with hundreds of snake-like creatures crawling over each other. Their eyes shone like fire. Before he could beg for mercy, the aliens pushed him in. He fell hard, landing on the wet, rough ground. Pain shot through his leg. He could hear the snakes moving closer. The door above him closed and everything went dark. For a moment, Ethan lay there, breathing fast, trying not to make a sound. He was trapped, alone, surrounded by creatures that wanted to kill him. Minutes passed. He pressed his back against the wall and waited for death. He thought about his home, his parents, his books. He wished he could have read one more story before dying. Then something strange happened. A faint light appeared in front of him, a soft golden glow floating in the air. He blinked, thinking he was imagining it. But the light grew stronger and started to take shape. It looked like a book. It was floating above the ground, its pages glowing with strange symbols. Ethan reached out slowly. The moment his fingers touched the cover, the snake stopped moving. The air became silent. The book opened by itself, and the symbols on the pages began to shift and change until they looked like words he could understand. He started to read. The words spoke directly into his mind. Ancient words about power, knowledge, and control. They told the story of a race of serpent gods who once ruled the stars, who had been betrayed and trapped in darkness. The more he read, the more he understood. The snakes around him were not monsters. They were protectors, guardians of this lost power. They had been waiting for someone who could read the Book of Serpents. Hours passed. Ethan didn't notice the pain or the cold anymore. He kept reading, his eyes glowing with the same golden light as the book. The snakes slowly gathered around him, no longer hissing. They formed a circle and bowed their heads as if they recognized him. When the aliens finally returned to check if he was dead, they were not prepared for what they saw. The boy was sitting in the center of the pit, calm and silent, holding the glowing book. The snakes were resting peacefully around him. The guards froze in shock. One of them whispered, "He's alive." Another hissed, "No, he's something else now." Ethan lifted his head and looked at them. His eyes were no longer brown, but they burned with golden fire. He smiled faintly and turned another page. The words inside the book whispered louder, and the ground beneath him trembled like thunder. Something ancient had awakened. And the aliens realized too late that by throwing the boy into the dungeon, they had unleashed something far beyond their control. The aliens had seen many strange things in their world, but never this. No human had ever survived the snake dungeon. Yet Ethan, the weak boy from Earth, sat peacefully in the middle of the pit, surrounded by hundreds of silent serpents. Their eyes glowed softly, fixed on him with something that looked like respect. The glowing book floated before him, turning its own pages in the thick air. Up in the control room, the alien guards argued in fear. "He reads the sacred text," one shouted. "That is forbidden," another hissed. But none dared to enter the pit again. They could feel the energy coming from below, a strange pulse that shook the floor under their feet. Down in the darkness, Ethan kept reading. The book told him things that felt both terrifying and beautiful. It spoke of an ancient empire of serpent beings who once ruled thousands of worlds. They had wisdom beyond any species, but their pride led to war. Their knowledge was locked away in this dungeon, sealed inside the Book of Serpents, waiting for a mind pure enough to open it again. Ethan didn't fully understand how, but the book had chosen him. Each word entered his mind like a whisper, teaching him secrets he was never meant to know. It showed him visions of galaxies burning, worlds reborn, and a power that connected every living thing. As he read, strange marks began to appear on his skin, small golden lines that glowed like light underwater. He didn't feel pain, only warmth. The snakes crawled closer, their bodies forming patterns on the floor matching the symbols inside the book. Then, the air trembled. The walls of the dungeon began to hum. The snakes lifted their heads in unison. Something was happening, something powerful. When Ethan spoke again, his voice didn't sound human. "I can hear them," he said quietly. "They're not monsters. They are waiting." One of the alien guards finally found the courage to open the door. He stepped closer, holding his weapon tight. "Stay where you are, human," he shouted. "Drop the book." Ethan didn't move. His eyes glowed brighter. "They were prisoners too," he said softly. "You took their freedom, just like you took mine." Before the guard could react, the biggest serpent moved. Its scales flashed gold as it rose high and wrapped itself around the alien. The creature screamed, but the boy didn't look away. He only turned another page, and the serpent obeyed his silent command. The other guards panicked and ran to the control room. Sirens echoed through the base. Red lights flashed across every corridor. But inside the pit, everything grew calmer. The snakes returned to their places, and Ethan closed the book. He stood up slowly. The golden symbols on his arm spread to his hands, glowing brighter with every breath. He raised his palm, and the heavy dungeon door unlocked on its own. The aliens watching from behind the glass couldn't believe it. No human could control their technology. Yet the boy had done it with a single thought. The commander, a tall serpent warrior named Vorsk, shouted, "Contain him!" He used the shock field. The guards pressed glowing buttons, activating a ring of blue electricity around the pit. But instead of trapping Ethan, the energy vanished into thin air. The lights in the entire base flickered, then died. Darkness swallowed everything. When the lights returned a few seconds later, the guards gasped. Ethan was no longer in the pit. He was standing on the upper floor right behind them. The book floated beside him, pages spinning like a storm of golden fire. Vorsk turned slowly, his tail shaking. "What are you?" he hissed. Ethan looked at him calmly. "I was just a boy," he said. "But your dungeon changed that." He lifted the book, and the alien commander felt something pulling inside his mind, a voice older than time itself, whispering in his thoughts. The same fear that the aliens once gave others now filled them. The commander tried to strike, but his weapon turned to dust. The book glowed brighter, filling the room with light. Every serpent in the dungeon rose and hissed in harmony, their eyes shining gold. The whole base began to vibrate, as if alive again after centuries of silence. Then the voice came, not from Ethan, but from everywhere. "The Serpent Empire shall rise again." Ethan fell to his knees, breathing hard. The light around him faded and the book slowly closed. He could feel the power inside him now, wild, ancient, and alive. The alien stepped back, afraid to move. When he looked at them, his expression was calm, almost gentle. "You tried to destroy me," he said softly. "But I think you just saved your own doom." He turned away and walked down the corridor. The snakes followed him like silent shadows. The dungeon doors opened one by one as he passed. For the first time in thousands of years, the serpents had a master again. And this time it wasn't one of them. It was a human boy named Ethan. Ethan walked slowly through the endless metallic corridors of the alien base. The air around him buzzed with strange energy. Every wall seemed to breathe, every light pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. The snakes followed him like loyal soldiers, their bodies gliding smoothly behind him. He could feel their thoughts whispering in his mind, not with words, but with emotions and images. They were showing him things, pieces of their ancient past. He saw visions of a great empire in the stars, shining cities made of crystal, towers that reached across galaxies, and a race of beings both wise and terrible. The serpents were once rulers of hundreds of worlds, but they fell into darkness when they began to play with forbidden knowledge. They created the Book of Serpents to store their power, but it was too strong. It turned against them, and their empire was lost. The survivors buried the book deep inside their dungeons, waiting for someone pure-hearted enough to control it again. Ethan could now see why the book had chosen him. He had no greed, no hunger for control, only curiosity and a desire to understand. The power inside him grew stronger with every step. The symbols on his skin glowed like living fire. As he moved deeper into the base, he came to a vast hall filled with giant alien machines. Strange blue energy flowed through glass tubes, lighting the room like lightning. He looked around, realizing this was not just a prison. It was a power station that fed energy to the whole alien colony. The voice of the serpent god whispered again in his head. "Free us completely, child of Earth, open the core." Ethan hesitated. He didn't fully trust the voice. "What if you destroy everything?" he whispered back. The voice answered calmly, "We will destroy nothing that deserves to live." He placed the glowing book on the ground. It opened by itself, pages flipping fast until they stopped at a single symbol, a circle made of 3 snakes eating each other's tails. The ground beneath him began to shake. The huge machines in the hall started humming louder. Up in the control tower, Commander Vorsk watched in horror. "He's activating the ancient systems," he shouted. "If he unlocks the core, the whole planet could explode." Guards rushed to stop him, but the snakes moved faster. They slid through vents and corridors, attacking anything that came near. Ethan could feel their presence like waves of energy, protecting him, guiding him, obeying without question. The boy raised his hand. A beam of golden light burst from his palm, connecting with the machine's heart. The metal started to melt into bright streams of energy. The walls around him began to shift, revealing a massive door that had been hidden for centuries. The door opened slowly, and behind it was a chamber filled with floating orbs of light, memories of the serpent gods. Ethan stepped inside, his eyes wide. He could see faces, voices, battles, and cities destroyed by their own greed. The book floated into the air beside him, its glow becoming even brighter. The voice spoke again, softer now. "We were not only rulers, we were dreamers. We built too much too fast. You must learn from our fall." Ethan nodded. "I don't want power," he said quietly. "I just want to go home." The book's pages turned once more, and he saw a final image, Earth surrounded by darkness, and a fleet of ships moving toward it. The alien serpents were not the only ones in the galaxy. Something worse was coming. Suddenly, alarms echoed through the hall. The aliens had activated their defense drones. Metal machines with red eyes flew through the air, firing energy bolts. Ethan raised his hands instinctively, and a wall of golden light appeared around him. The blasts hit the shield and vanished. He looked surprised. He hadn't even tried to do that consciously. The power was acting on its own, protecting him. The snakes rose from the ground and attacked the drones, tearing them apart with speed and precision. Commander Vorsk appeared again, holding a strange black sphere in his claws. "Human!" he shouted. "You don't understand what you're awakening. That power is cursed. It will destroy you and everything you touch." Ethan stared at him. "You locked away your own gods. You turned their wisdom into weapons. Maybe the curse was never in the book. Maybe it was in you." Vorsk roared and threw the black sphere. It exploded into a wave of dark energy. The snakes screamed, their golden light flickering. Ethan felt pain for the first time since he found the book. He fell to his knees, holding his chest. But the book lifted itself again, glowing brighter than ever. A deep, thunderous voice filled the hall. "Enough." A shockwave of golden fire spread in every direction, knocking the commander to the ground. The darkness vanished. The machines shut down. Ethan stood up again, his body surrounded by a bright aura. He looked down at the book. It was no longer just an object. It was alive and connected to him completely. The voice spoke once more, gentle and calm. "The awakening has begun. But your journey is not over. Beyond this planet lies the truth about who we were, and who you must become." Ethan looked up at the dark ceiling of the alien base where stars shimmered faintly through cracks in the metal. For the first time he felt both fear and purpose. He was no longer just a lost human boy. He was something new, something the galaxy had not seen for thousands of years. And far above, in the cold silence of space, something ancient began to move. The planet was shaking. The alien base trembled like it was alive and afraid. The lights flickered and the air burned with golden energy. Ethan stood in the center of the hall, his eyes glowing brighter than the sun. The Book of Serpents floated beside him, turning its pages faster and faster, as if impatient to finish a story written long before time began. All around him, the serpents watched in silence. They could feel it, the return of their gods, the rebirth of what was once lost. But deep inside Ethan's heart, something human still fought to stay alive. He didn't want to become a monster or a god. He just wanted to go home. He looked at the book and whispered, "If I finish this, what happens to me?" The voice of the serpent god answered gently, "You were chosen to awaken us. But what comes next is your choice. Power is not the curse. The heart that uses it decides everything." Ethan closed his eyes. The images inside his mind grew stronger. He saw Earth and his home, glowing blue and peaceful in the darkness of space. Then he saw shadows moving toward it, ships, thousands of them. The same symbol that was on the Book of Serpents glowed on their hulls. "Are those your armies?" he asked in shock. "No," the voice said. "They are ours, but they no longer serve us. They serve the darkness that betrayed us." Ethan understood now. The serpent gods were not the true enemies. Something worse had taken control of their old empire. Something that wanted the book, and him. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the hall. Commander Vorsk, burned and furious, rose from the ground. His armor was broken. His eyes filled with rage. "You think you understand this power, human? You think the gods will spare you?" He shouted. "You will die just like them." He pressed a small device on his wrist. A red alarm began to flash everywhere. The self-destruction of the base had started. The countdown began from 60 seconds. The snakes hissed loudly, panicking. The walls split open and the floor started to collapse. Ethan looked around, trying to think fast. He turned to the book. "Can we stop it?" The book answered with a low hum. Golden symbols appeared in the air around him. Ethan focused and raised both hands. The energy around him formed into a glowing shield that stopped the collapsing debris. But it wouldn't hold for long. The commander laughed. "You can't save this place. You'll be buried here forever." Ethan looked at him calmly. "Maybe, but I won't let you hurt anyone else." He lifted the book. A beam of golden light shot out, striking Vorsk's chest. The alien screamed as his body turned into dust that blew away like smoke. The countdown reached 20 seconds. Ethan knew he couldn't stop the explosion, but maybe he could change what it would do. He placed the book on the ground and pressed his glowing palm against it. The voice of the serpent god filled the room again. "You are doing what even we could not. You are giving power meaning." The energy around Ethan exploded into light. The countdown hit 0. But instead of destruction, a wave of golden fire burst upward, spreading across the sky. The planet didn't break apart. It transformed. From space, it looked like a dying world turning into a star. The serpents, once prisoners, became pure energy, rising into the heavens as golden streams of light. Ethan stood in the center of it all, surrounded by beauty and silence. The voice whispered softly one last time. "The serpent star is reborn. Your world will need you soon. Remember us." The light swallowed everything. When Ethan opened his eyes again, he was lying on soft grass. The air was warm and birds were singing. He sat up slowly and saw the blue sky of Earth above him. He was back home. He looked down. His clothes were torn and the golden marks on his arms were still faintly glowing. But the book was gone. Only a small piece of metal lay beside him, shaped like a serpent's eye, shining faintly. He picked it up and felt a pulse of warmth like a heartbeat. In his mind, he could still hear the voice. "The stars are watching, Ethan. They will return when you are ready." He stood up and looked toward the horizon. Everything looked normal, peaceful. But somewhere deep in space, beyond human eyes, a new star was burning. The serpent star. And in its light, something began to stir. The lost armies of the Serpent Empire were awakening once again, searching for the one who held their book. Ethan didn't.